So we're in the middle of the story of Yaakov's burial, his final sojourn on earth. 13a, Yud Gimel Mid Aleph. So we described yesterday that initially the Egyptians had their respect for Joseph, for Yosef, being the second in command, but they didn't really care much for the brothers, which by extension meant they didn't really honor Yaakov himself. They were just honoring Joseph. And therefore, on their way up from Egypt to Israel to bury Yaakov, the representatives of Pharaoh, the ministers and all those who came, all the dignitaries, they followed directly behind Joseph and then the brothers behind them. But the events that happened as they were traveling up to Israel made them realize that they should honor Yaakov for his own sake and therefore honor his children. And therefore on the way down, they put Jacob's brothers in front, Yosef's brothers in front, and then they stood behind. Yeah, these guys living in Goshen, these shepherds, we don't really care for them. On the way down, they had respect. So what happened? So what we described yesterday is really two events. Number one, when they got to this place called Goren Ha'atad, which means the threshing ground of this bushy tree, what it means is that in the same way a threshing ground is surrounded by bushy trees to protect it, so was the casket of Yaakov surrounded by crowns. And these crowns were given by all the chieftains of basically Yaakov's nephews and cousins, the children of Esau, the children of Yishmael, the children of Keturah, which is Avram's wife. All of them seeing the crown of Egypt, the crown of Joseph on Yaakov's casket, they put their crowns as well, and 36 crowns surrounded Yaakov's casket. That was the first event. The second is when they're in this place called Goren Ha'atad. There it says that there was a great and heavy or weighty eulogy and mourning. And this, the Gemara tells us, means that even donkeys and horses joined in the mourning of Yaakov. And I said that God willing, when we get to the end of the discussion today, we will perhaps try to look at this on a spiritual level and understand what this might mean. The mourning of the donkeys and the horses, I can't tell you. Okay, so let's continue. It says the line begins with the word kivon. It's a bit above. It's a bit above halfway down from the bottom of the page, halfway. It's a little higher than halfway. The line begins with the word kivon. The line before it ends with a parenthesis. So the narrative continues. Kivon shehigiu l'maris machpelah. Once the procession arrived at the Maris Machpelah, the doubled cave that we actually talked about earlier. This is the cave which is situated in Hebron. One can go visit it till today. And there, that was purchased by Abraham from Ephraim for himself to be buried, for his wife to be buried. So at this point, once they arrived there, Esau, now Yaakov's brother, his twin brother, who's still alive, arrives on the scene. So his children are already there. His grandchildren, I suppose, and cousins, they're all there already, because they met earlier at Goren Ha'atad. And now Esau arrives. And Kamakov, he's preventing Yaakov from being interned in the cave in Ma'aras HaMachpelah. Amalahan, Esau told the children of Yaakov, Mamre Kiryas Ha'arba hi Hebron. This Mamre area, the area where the plain, Elon Mamre, the plain of Mamre, which is where Avram purchased our grandfather, our mutual grandfather, Esau's grandfather too, purchased this plot, is in a place called Kiryat Arba, which is Hebron. Now, what does Kiryat Arba mean? And why is this a reason to prevent Yaakov from coming in? So now Esau is not speaking anymore. The Gemara is now explaining what Esau meant. Namely, Rabbi explains, Kiryat Arba, the word Kiryat Arba, literally means the Kiryat is like the region or like the municipality of 4. So Hebron, this place, is called Kiryat Arba, the place of 4. So what does 4 mean? So explains Rabbi Yitzchak. Arba zuga Yishayu. there were 4 couples buried in this place in Marta Machpelah. Who are they? Adam and Chava, Abraham and Sarah, Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Yitzchak, Rivka, Isaac, Rebekah, and Yaakov and Leah. So this is the end of Rabbi Yitzchak's comment. Now the Gemara goes back to Esau's argument. So Esau tells them, look, we know that this cave only has 8 slots. 7 are already been taken. Adam and Eve are buried. It's 1, 2. Abraham, Sarah's 4. Yitzchak, Rivka's 6. And now he, my brother, Kavra Leah, already buried his wife Leah there. Bididei on his own. So there's 1 more slot left. And therefore, Haida Payish, the 1 slot that's left, Tidihu belongs to me now. Let me take it. Why should Yaakov get it more than me? There's 1 slot left. We're both equal inheritors here. Belongs to our mutual grandfather, Abraham. I want my spot. You went ahead and took 1. There's 2 left. Right. You took 1 already for your wife. I'm taking the second one now.
You could argue that his birthright was.
Let's see. Let's see. You don't need to guess. The Gemara can tell us. Let's see. So Amrulay, the children of Yaakov, said to Esau, Zavinta, you've already sold your right. You sold it earlier in the narrative, way earlier, towards the beginning of their life, or the beginning of the scuffle between Yaakov and Esau, is when Esau sells his birthright to Yaakov, Esau being the older son, sells his birthright to Yaakov, and for a bowl of lentil soup. So the children now argue, look, Esau, you sold your birthright, so you lost your space. So Amar Lohu, Esau told the brothers, Nehi granted, Disvini Bechirusa. It's true, I sold my birthright as the oldest son. But Pshitusa, my right as a son, Misvini, did I sell? In other words, as follows. The Jewish law is that all sons inherit their parents equally. The oldest son gets double portion. Yeah. So Esau said, look, I sold my right as the oldest born son, but I didn't sell my right as a son. So I don't have anything more than your father, but I definitely am an equal. And if I'm an equal, why? He already took one of the last few spots in the Maris Machpelah. I want the other. So they said, did I ever sell my right as a son? I only sold my right as a firstborn. Amulei, they told him, yes, you did. You sold your right as a son, period. You sold everything, not just your right as an older son, but you sold everything. What's the verse that establishes it? Because it reads, when Yaakov makes Yosef vow to bury him in Israel before he dies, Yaakov makes Yosef vow, please bury me in Israel. So there he says, bury me, where's the verse here? It's on the side. No, sorry. Yosef is speaking to Pharaoh and saying, my father made me vow that before he died, he made me vow that I should go bury him in Israel. So Yosef is quoting his father to Pharaoh. And he says, bury me, right? Yosef tells Pharaoh, my father Jacob said to me before he died as follows, bury me in the place that I dug, in the grave that I dug. Now this word for I dug is kariti. Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of Rabbi Shimon, son of Yochai that this word kira, in kira el lashon mechira, when it says kariti, when Yaakov says, when Joseph quotes Yaakov as saying, bury me in the place that I dug, the word dug, kiriti, also can mean kira, which means to sell. So bury me in the place that I bought. How do we get from kariti to be a sale? Because in other places overseas, they refer to sale as kira, which is a very similar sounding word, is mechira, and their accent is they drop the mem and they're left with just the words kira.
It means sell?
It means to sell. So when Joseph quotes his father to Pharaoh and says, my father said, bury me in the place that I dug. It could also be read as, bury me in the place that I purchased. Meaning, Yaakov purchased the rights of burial even from Esau. That is to say, Esau didn't just sell his right as a firstborn, but sold his right entirely. So they do have a document.
So Jacob purchased his right for burial?
For everything, yeah. Purchased everything. Not just the right for firstborn. So Esau's trying to prevent by saying, I'm an equal son, even if I'm not firstborn, at least I'm equal. And give me, I want the right to be buried in Marta Machpelah because your father already took one. He took one by giving his wife one. There's one spot left. I want it. But the children said, you sold it. And this is the verse that proves he sold it because Yaakov said, bury me in the place that I bought. So now
he bought this from Esau?
He bought everything from Esau. He bought the rights to everything, which would include the right for burial. So Amar Lahu, so Esau now tells his sons, okay, you have a document that proves I sold it. Havali Igrita, go bring me that document. Go bring me the document that proves that I sold it. Until then, I'm not letting you bury your father. Amrulay, so the sons told Esau, Igrita, this letter, Ba'ar de Mitzrayim, we left it back in Egypt. That's where it is. So they figured, Man Nazel, who's going to run to Egypt and go pick it up? They're stuck in Israel. They got to run all the way back to Egypt.
The fast one.
So who's the fast one?
Is it,
Who's the fast one? No, the fast one amongst the brothers. Naphtali. Nazel Naphtali. Let Naphtali go back to Egypt. Tekalil ki ailata. He is as fast as a deer. The Ksiv, as the verse reads, Naphtali ayola shalucha. Naphtali is a fast or a deer on a mission, Hanaisin Imre Shefer, which brings back beautiful words. So he's quick to bring good tidings. This is Naphtali. This is the blessing that Yaakov gives to Naphtali before Yaakov dies. He gives all his children blessings. And the blessing he gives to Naphtali is, you're the fast deer who's going to bring good tidings. So this is the word to say good tidings is Imre Shefer, which means beautiful words. So Amar Rabbo says, I'll take the Imre Shefer. Don't just read it as Imre Shefer, which means beautiful words. Ele Imri Sefer, but words of a book. Meaning to say, Naphtali is going to be the one to run and bring that book, that document that proves that Yaakov has the right to the Maris Machpelah. So this is where they're at. They're negotiating with Esau. Esau saying, don't let me in. I'm not letting you in. Let me in. Don't let me in. And they say, okay, we have document proof that you sold it to us. Give us a few days. Naphtali is going to run back to Egypt, pick it up. He'll bring a document here and show that we have the right to be buried there.
Yeah, Esau seemed to just relinquish everything. He didn't want anything to do with.
That's right. He relinquished everything.
Obligations or responsibilities.
Right. That's right. He gave everything up. But he was arguing now at this point that he only gave up his right as a firstborn, but he's still entitled as a son. That's right. So the brothers are now going to go. Naphtali is now going to run to Egypt to bring the document to prove that Esau sold everything. Here comes the most amazing part of the story. Hushim, there was a fellow named Hushim, Brei de Dan, the son of Dan. Dan's son named Hushim. Talmud Hava, he was there, his grandfather's funeral. He was hard of hearing, couldn't hear. So he didn't really know what was going on because he didn't really hear the whole back and forth. So Amar Lahu, he turns to his family, his cousins, his uncles. Hi, what's going on over here? Why aren't we going into the Marta Machpelah? It's a little bit of a different version to the story you cited yesterday. So he asked, hi, what's going on over here? Like, why are we waiting? What's the holdup? They told him, Kama Akiv, we are being held back. Hi, this whole proceeding is being held back. Ada'ati Naphtali, until your uncle, our brother, or our uncle, and who's talking to him, the cousins or the brothers. Ati Naphtali, Ma'ar de Mitzrayim, until Naphtali is going to come back from Egypt with this document. Until then, we're being held up. Amalahu, so Hushim tells his cousins, I'm not understanding this. So until Naphtali gets back here, my grandfather's going to be lying here disgraced. You guys are sitting around and waiting for Naphtali to come back. What's wrong with you people? So Shakal Kulfa, he grabbed a stick. Yeah, a good strong stick. Mahya Aresha and smashed Esau over the head. And Nartin Aine, the eyes of Esau fell out of the socket. The Nafla Akara de Yaakov, and they fell at the knees of Yaakov. Patrinu Yaakov Le'ena, Yaakov opened up his eyes, and he smiled. So, and obviously the proceedings went on. So it's a little bit of a different version than the one you quoted, which just comes from a different source. But we're going to discuss this one, even though there's a different version of the story that his head came off and his head rolled in. But here we're going with this version, that his eyes fell out and landed at the knees of Yaakov. And when we discuss the spiritual significance, we're going to discuss all of this.
This is all before the birthright? It's not even the birthright?
No, this is at the end of the life. This is when Yaakov died. They're burying Yaakov.
It's almost like Pinchas. Pinchas is like the zealot.
That's right. Pinchas says, take action. Don't wait. We're going to discuss it. We're going to discuss that.
He's in the coffin. The coffin is closed. How can they see his eyes?
It's a good question. Good question. Why? No. Yaakov's eyes didn't pop out. Esau's did.
Oh, Esau.
They banged it. Hushim banged Esau over the head.
Okay, so-
Esau's eyes fell out and landed at the knees of Yaakov. Yaakov opened his eyes and smiled.
So how do they know?
So how did they see that? Good question. Maybe like, which actually Jewish law is, you're supposed to bury your body directly in the earth, not with a casket. So it could be they carried him with a casket, and then before burial, they removed the casket to put him in, just his body, wrapped in shrouds or whatever. So maybe that's when they saw it, I guess. But this is the Gemara story. We're going to discuss perhaps what the details are. But it's interesting, right? Esau is losing his eyes. His eyes fell out, and Yaakov's eyes are opening. Right? So there's like a contrast there. And specifically falling at the knees. What's the deal with the knees? We're going to discuss all this when we get to the spiritual significance. We'll discuss all these details and see if they all line up. I mean, hopefully our explanation will line up with everything. But before that, let's just finish the Gemara's narrative. Okay. Behind the Diksiv, and this is the meaning of the verse, which says in Tehillim 58:11, Yismach Tzadik Kichaza, the Tzadik rejoices when he sees Nakam Pa'amav, the vengeance laid out on his oppressors. Yerchatz V'dam Harasha, he'll like wash himself in the blood of the wicked. So this is Esau. This is Yaakov being happy now seeing Esau's fall. Okay. Gemara continues. But at this moment, Yaakov is dead. Yaakov just died. He's about to be buried. And Esau just died now also at the hands of his great nephew Hushim, right? Esau's great nephew, right? His brother's grandson, this half-deaf Hushim. Sorry?
Esau must have been quite old at that point.
Very old. They're 100, however old Yaakov is. They're the same age, right? They're twins, 120, right? What is it? It's very old. So at that moment, Rivka's prophecy is fulfilled. Because the verse reads, Rivka tells Yaakov, after they trick Yitzchak into giving Yaakov the blessing, right? Yitzchak doesn't know about the sale of Esau to Yaakov, right? Rivka sets up Yaakov to get the blessings from his father Yitzchak. After that, Esau comes angry and wants to kill Yaakov. So Rivka tells her son, leave. I don't want to be mourning you both on one day. And here it happens that she does mourn him on one day, because on both in the same day, they're buried, as we'll see. So she said, Lama eshkol gam shneichem yom echad. Why should I mourn both of you, lose both of you on one day? And so now the prophecy is fulfilled, because at one moment, there's one juncture here where both of them are dying. So as the Gemara explains, even though their death wasn't on the same day, because Yaakov died many days earlier, right? The verse describes how first in Egypt they spent, 40 days and first embalming him, putting on, embalming him. And then I think 70 days, look at the verses, and then 70 days of mourning. Describes it here in the verse. I'm looking at the verse here. Yeah, 40 days of embalming him, and then 70 days of mourning, and then traveling. And when they get to go to Ata, it's another 7 days. So this is quite a while after he died. So even though, which the Gemara says, even though their death was not on one day, but Furasan, their burial was on one day, Hava it was. Right? Because Yaakov is being buried today. Now Esau also being buried today because he just died.
Where did they end up burying Esau, other than his eyeballs or his head?
It doesn't say it here. I don't know. Good question. Okay. And the Gemara, final comment from the Gemara on this discussion, on this narrative. Gemara asks, right? So this whole discussion is because of the measure for measure. Yosef himself took it upon himself to bury his father. And therefore, measure for measure, when Yosef died, Moshe Rabbeinu buried Yosef. Right? This is where this whole context comes in. We're learning in the laws of Sotah the measure for measure business, right? The Sotah law is measure for measure. The proceedings of the Sotah is measure for measure for her behavior. So we're talking about measure for measure in the positive. Yosef buried his father, as we just read this whole story, and therefore Moshe buries Yosef. So the Gemara says, "V'iloi asik b'Yosef," if Yosef himself had not troubled himself to bury his father, achav life misaskebe, would the brothers not do it? The verse reads, it says that his children, plural, Yaakov's children altogether buried Yosef. So why is Yosef being singled out? The brothers not all do it? So says the Gemara, Amru, the brothers said, Hanichu, let Yosef be the one. Hanichu, let Yosef be the one to be in charge of this project. Why? Kvoidoi, the honor of our father, the Malachim, is more great when a king handles his burial, Yosef being a king, Yosef more than us simpletons. So the brothers were, even though they were obviously involved in burying the father, they accompanied the father all the way up to Canaan, but nonetheless, they relinquished their mitzvah of doing it to give their father great honor, which is itself is a sense of humility. It's the mitzvah to bury a father, right? So they could have pushed their way in rightfully, but they figured that it's more honorable for their father if Yosef does it, considering that he's a king. So they had the humility to allow him to be in charge of the proceeding. Okay, so this is the narrative as we have it here. There's going to be more coming. We're going to get to the narrative of Yosef's burial soon, but this is the end of the narrative of Yaakov's burial. So I said we're going to talk about the significance of all this stuff on the spiritual side, and we may not have time to go through all of it because it's quite a bit. But I'm just going to tell you one item that I'm building a lot of my my whole spiritual narrative on. And I'm sharing with you now, actually, is a teaching from the Rebbe. And it's personally important because, to me personally, because my last time that I spent Shabbos at the Rebbe's Ohel was this past Yud Shvat, in January. A number of friends of mine were also shluchim around different areas. We all got together, spent Shabbos at the Ohel. We all hadn't been there a long time because of COVID. So we organized to be in a house to bring together and inspire each other. And we all kind of came with our spiritual shopping list, right? We haven't been there in a year. We want inspiration. We want this. We want that. And we're all talking about that. And at one point, the discussion turned, and one of my friends kind of turned the discussion, saying like, "What's with the selfishness? We all came with a little shopping list. If you're looking for inspiration so you can get things done, good. But you stop coming here because you want it. You have a greedy spiritual greediness. What's going on over here? This is not the way we're supposed to spend Shabbos." So the conversation changed, and it became about how we're going to march forward and do what we have to do, as opposed to how do we selfishly take in all the inspiration.
Right.
We're here to serve, not to get.
Right.
So someone shared this teaching about Choshim, like this. So someone at the Fabring, one of my friends, shared the following teaching about this Gemara. So the Gemara, as we just learned, says that Choshim, which is the son of Dan, grandson of Yaakov, was half deaf, was partially deaf. And he asked, what's going on? They told him what's happening. So he said, what, we're going to sit here and wait along for you guys to go get a thing? Forget that. Banged Esau over the head. So why is it that Choshim had that insight? Nobody else had the insight to do that? Choshim, specifically Choshim, had the insight to do this. All of this, there's 12 brothers, all there. There's other grandkids, presumably, not just Choshim. And only one guy, Choshim, had the insight to say, what are you doing? You guys are wasting your time going to get a document. Just bang the guy over the head. Why is he the only one who thought of it?
Why do they need the document?
To prove that Esau sold the right for burial to Yaakov.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because Esau wanted to be buried there. He said you already took one because you gave one to your wife Leah.
Right.
There's only one spot left. I want it. I'm a son just like you are.
Right.
Right? So they said, no, but you sold it. So Esau says, go get your document. So they're right. So Naphtali is running back to Egypt to get the document. And Choshim says, what are you wasting your time? So why was Choshim the only one who had that insight?
But by killing him, that proves that
It didn't prove anything. They already had it. The point, they didn't have to prove anything. Stop wasting your time proving anything. We already know you own it. Just get it done.
Okay.
When are you wasting your time doing this? So why was he the only one that had the insight? So the thought was, why was he the only one that had the insight to just do that? Just get the job done. Just bang Esau over the head. So that explained like this. This is what my friend was sharing at this Fabrengen. It's because Choshim was deaf. Because Choshim was deaf, because he couldn't hear, he didn't get himself stuck into a negotiation. when you're stuck in negotiation, you end up, it's hard for you to see a solution outside of your negotiation. So once they get into an argument with Esau, who's right? I'm right, you're right. And you end up being stuck in this position where you want to prove you're right. So look, we're going to prove you're right. Wait here. We're going to run back and get our document. And Hushim didn't hear any of this negotiation. So his mind wasn't stuck in negotiating with Esau. His mind was get the job done. So what are you wasting your time negotiating? Bang him over the head, get it done. Bang Esau over the head and move forward. This is a lesson in dealing with the Yetzer Hara, dealing with our evil inclination. Esau represents, of course, the evil inclination. Yaakov represents the Yetzer Tov, our good inclination. Don't negotiate with your inclination. Make yourself deaf. As soon as you start negotiating with your evil inclination, well, maybe I shouldn't, or I could, I have to, I'm not sure if I can do it. As soon as you're stuck in negotiation mode, you get stuck and you're waiting around like this, twiddling your thumbs so you can get some proof. Forget that. Be like Hushim. Turn your ears off, make yourself deaf to the negotiation, know your job, and go do your job. So it's Hushim's, they introduced Hushim as deaf because that's the reason why he had the insight. Specifically because he didn't get involved in negotiation. So the point being, don't negotiate with evil. Don't negotiate. Am I inspired? I'm not. This became the topic of the Fabrengen. I am inspired. I'm not inspired. I need more inspiration. Otherwise, I can't deal with this issue. Stop negotiating with the issues. What's your job? March forward and do your job. And if you got to bang the Yetzer over the head, bang the Yetzer over the head. So this is a teaching for them on this Gemara.
Nothing to prove. Everybody knew the truth.
Exactly.
So it was just a waste of time.
It was a waste of time. You know that we all know the truth. We all know Yaakov belongs there. So what are you gonna do? Prove to the Yetzer Hara?
Witnesses and
Forget it.
whatever.
Stop trying to prove yourself. Just get what you have to done.
Which brother was the bully? There's one brother who was a bully.
No one here. Maybe earlier in the narrative.
No. Yeah, but there was one brother who was strong. He was a bully.
Yehuda was very strong, but
Yehuda.
he wasn't a bully. He was a protective brother, right? He protected Binyamin. He was a protective brother.
Yeah, but he was the one who told Yosef that if you don't do it or something.
Because he didn't know who Yosef was.
Wake you all up.
Because he didn't know who Yosef was. He was the protective brother. He was protecting his younger brothers.
He was the one
But Yehuda is not here.
He was saying, I'm reasonable, but if you don't want to be reasonable
Yeah.
back, then I have no choice.
Yeah, but he doesn't come up in this narrative. It's not here. Anyway, so I'll just say, so this is a teaching from the Rebbe. This is already repeating not my own words, but the Rebbe's words. But this idea of Hushim being the one who's deaf, and because he's not negotiating with evil, he is focused on what do I have to get done and marches forward without negotiation.
Kind of like a metaphor for deafness.
It's right. It's a metaphor for how we to treat the evil inside of us. Stop negotiating with it.
Be deaf.
Stop be deaf to the issues. Know your job and march forward to do it. This attitude is going to shape the way I understand this whole narrative, spiritually speaking, and God willing, I'll share with you tomorrow. What's the significance of 36 crowns? What's the significance of Esau's eyes falling out? What's the significance of the eyes falling to Yaakov's knees? What's the significance of the horse and the donkey joining in the honors? What's the significance of the document being in Egypt? All of these, why did they carry the document with them? It's the most obvious document to have. You're about to bury your father in Esau. You have a document that proves that you're about to bury your father in Maras Machpelah. You have a document that proves that he owns it. Why would you bring it to begin with? What is this doing still in Egypt? All of these questions will be answered. Yeah, bring your legal documents with you. Everybody knows that if anybody who's, God forbid, gone through a funeral knows, make sure your papers are in order or you're going to get, or some issue is going to come up, right? Everybody knows that. So they have a document in Egypt, but they left it there. What are they doing? What are they doing? Exactly. So at any rate, I think all those questions are going to be answered when we look at the whole narrative through the lens of this spiritual idea of turn off your eyes to negotiations, turn off your ears, deaf to negotiation with evil, get the job done. That attitude is going to explain the entire narrative. And that, God willing, we'll get into tomorrow. So you have a little cliffhanger. So what I share with you today is not my own insight. This is from the Rebbe. What I'm going to build tomorrow based on this is all going to be my interpretation. And of course, the floor will be open to agree or disagree or offer some other insight. So we're going to use this message to explain the entire narrative, all the details in the Gemara, God willing.
I wonder when he whacked him over the head, if he was speaking of Pinchas.
Yes, that's what Robert was just saying, that this Hushim is like a Pinchas type character. What's the job? What do we have to get done? Act.
Just do it.
Just get what you have. Know your job, know where you have to go, and just move forward. Stop negotiating with the issues. Yeah.
So where did they end up burying Esau?
I don't know. He asked that question. I'm not sure. Maybe someone listening knows where Esau was buried. Share with us.
Yeah, maybe it's.
I don't know. So, but I was going to say, oh, this is connected to a teaching that the Rebbe would very often quote from the fourth Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shmuel of Lubavitch, the Maharash. So he would say, and the Rebbe quoted this very often, that when you face a challenge, the world says, first try to go around the challenge, try to go under the challenge, try to squeeze your way through the challenge. And then if you you run out of options, then go over the option. Then just then go over the option. Go over the challenge if all other options fail. And that's what the world says. But I say, it says that Rabbi Marash, Rabbi Shmuel, in the first case, just go over the challenge. No. So first, the attitude is negotiate with evil, prove you're right, prove you're this. And then at the end, if we can't do anything else, we'll try to bang Esau over the head. But Hushim says, you're wasting your time negotiating. First thing you do is, what's your job? Bang, go, move on. So that's the attitude of Hushim. And that's the attitude of the way the Rebbe taught us to live. Know your job and move forward. And we're going to elaborate the God tomorrow on that.
Must have been some whack.
To bang the eyes out of his socket. Yeah. Okay, wonderful day, Yidden. So you have a little cliffhanger, God willing, tomorrow.
Must have been a heavy stick.
Yeah, the Gemara, Rashi says it's a heavy stick. Rashi says the Gemara uses a particular word for.
Iron bar.
Yeah, the Gemara uses.
Flintstones Club.
The Gemara uses a particular word for stick, and Rashi comments that it's a heavy stick.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful day, Yidden.
Stuck.
I mean, a club.